The following presentation was recorded live at the Andrews Center Conference on Women in Leadership, September 11th, 2014. Carla Harris is the Vice Chairman of Global Wealth Management, Managing Director, and Senior Client Advisor at Morgan Stanley. The title of her presentation is Expect to Win.
Good morning, ladies, and a few brave men in the room. It is my distinct honor and privilege to be here today, and I want to thank the Andrews Center for allowing my firm, Morgan Stanley, to be a sponsor of this great, wonderful conference. I was so excited to look at the brochure and see the content, the subject matter, and the amazing speakers that you have, and I am so honored to be among them. And I'm really happy that I have an opportunity this morning to share with you one of my favorite topics. And that's what I like to call Carla's pearls. As I say, my hard-earned and hard-learned pearls after being a woman on Wall Street for 27 years. Yes. I dare say that I have learned a few things about not only surviving, but more importantly, thriving in the seat that you sit in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. I had the privilege of writing a book, which you all will get a copy of, called Expect to Win, a few years ago. And since I wrote the book, I've had the privilege of traveling all over the world, most recently in Germany, Luxembourg, and mainly in corporate environments, Fortune 500 companies, also college campuses, to talk about the pearls. And over, people ask me, why were you so honest in that book about everything that happened in your career? And I will tell you why. When I walked out of the lauded halls of Harvard undergrad and Harvard Business School, I embraced this whole concept of a meritocracy. Success was merely a function of how smart you were and how hard you worked. Yet, when I started my career, it didn't quite work out that way. You see, I thought I was pretty smart, magna cum laude, Harvard undergrad, second year honors, Harvard Business School, pretty smart, huh? I'm from the South. So I knew that there were very few of those boys up there that could outwork me. Yet, that combination did not equal maximizing my success. So I had to ask myself, what's missing in this success equation? And being the anal person that I am, I went to the dictionary and I looked up the word meritocracy. And I don't care whose dictionary you go to. If you look up the word meritocracy, you will see the word objective somewhere in that definition. Yet, in all of our evaluative equations, there is a human element. And if there is a human element, by definition, it is subjective. So it cannot be 100% meritocratic. So what are some of those other things that really inform your success equation? And that's really what the pearls are all about. So I'm going to cut a deal with you this morning, ladies. As you've heard, I've been on the street for 27 years, so I am a seasoned deal-making gal, not old, seasoned deal-making gal. And the deal is, I will agree to tell you exactly how it is if you will agree to ask me anything that's on your mind when we get to Q&A. Do we have a deal? Yeah. All right, let's get started. First pearl, and it is the most important thing that I learned after 2.5 decades on the street. So do not be fooled when you read the book and you see that it is chapter 4, because it is the most important thing that I learned, and that is perception is the co-pilot to reality. How people perceive you will directly impact how they deal with you. And if you want to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in, you must understand the lens that the marketplace is looking through when they are looking at you. And it is imperative that you understand the adjectives that are associated with success for the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. If you don't understand the adjectives that are associated with success, you can work really hard, but you won't maximize your success in that role because you could be working in a way that is inconsistent with the way they are thinking about success. If you are in a finance role and you are not perceived as being analytical and quantitative, it doesn't matter that you've done that before. It doesn't matter that you can do that role. You will not be tapped to do that role if you are not perceived as such. If you would like to manage a large group of people, but you are not perceived as being motivational, inspirational, or organized, it doesn't matter that you can. Doesn't even matter that you did. You won't get the opportunity to do that if you are not perceived as such. Now, people say to me all the time, but wait a minute, Carla, I am who I am. I can't make anybody think about me in a certain way. If you remember nothing else about our time together this morning, remember that you can train people to think about you in the way that you want them to think about you. And how do you do that? You pick 3 adjectives that you would like people to use to describe you when you are not in the room. And why do I say when you're not in the room? It's because all of the important decisions about your career will be made when you are not in the room. Promotion decisions will be made when you're not in the room. Compensation decisions will be made when you are not in the room. And new assignments will be given out when you are not in the room. So how do you want people to describe you when you're not in the room? Pick 3 adjectives that are absolutely consistent with who you really are, because I'm a big fan of the authenticity point. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you. It is your distinct competitive advantage. And we'll talk about that this morning. So pick 3 adjectives that are absolutely consistent with who you really are. However, pick 3 adjectives that are also valued in your organization. And if you don't know by now what's valued in your organization, you can go to the organization's website. There isn't an organization today that doesn't describe itself or its values on its website. And if they don't, think about what they told you when they hired you. Oh, Shannon, we hired you for the following 3 reasons. Oh, Kim, you beat out those 2 candidates for those 3 reasons. They told you then what they valued about you. So the trick is to improve upon that which they value. The 3 adjectives that are valued in your organization, the 3 adjectives that are consistent with who you really are, where they intersect is how you must behave consistently if you want to train people to think about you in a certain way. Consistent behavior around those 3 adjectives. And my big aha happened 5 to 6 years in my career. And this is a story that I've told hundreds of times, but every time I have the privilege and the honor of speaking in front of a group of people, I tell this story because it was indeed my aha moment. 5 to 6 years into my career, I had a very senior managing director say to me, you know, you're smart, you work hard, but I don't think you're tough enough for this business. Now, my first reaction is, what is he smoking? You can call Carla Harris a lot of things, but ain't tough ain't one of them. But then I said, wait a minute. Suppose this guy is not pulling my leg. Suppose he really doesn't think that I'm tough enough for this business. And heaven forbid, suppose the rest of the organization doesn't think that I'm tough enough for this business. And as you might imagine, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing that you want to be thought of as a woman and a woman on Wall Street is not tough. And oh, by the way, authentically, that is who I am. So the fact that this guy was questioning whether or not I was tough enough was a wake-up call to me that the real Carla Harris was not walking into Morgan Stanley every day. Somewhere I'd lost my voice. Somewhere I'd lost my confidence. And it was creating a competitive disadvantage for me. So after I got that feedback, I said, okay, I know what I'll do. For 90 days, I decided I would walk tough, talk tough, eat tough, drink tough, use tough in my language. Because it's important that if you want to train people to think about you in a certain way, you must have consistent behavior around those 3 adjectives. And you must use this language in your environment, particularly when you are talking about yourself. So I had a reputation of being very good at critiquing management presentations, so much so that before we would take a company on the road for a multi-billion-dollar IPO or a multi-hundred-million-dollar common stock transaction, my colleagues would often ask me to come into the room and listen to that CEO's presentation and give that CEO some feedback, even when it was not my deal. So the next time someone asked me to do that, after I gotten that feedback, I said, wait a minute. Tell me a little bit about this CEO. Is this guy sensitive? Does he have a thin skin? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because you know I'm tough. And I kept using this language over and over and over to describe myself. And sure enough, in about 90 days, it worked. I had a team of people coming to see me. They didn't know I was behind them. And the VP was beating up the pro associate. Do you have the backup analysis? Do you have the signature analysis? We're going to see Carla Harris. And you know she's so tough. So they will start to think about you in that way if you have consistent behavior around those three adjectives. But ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that you understand the adjectives that are associated with success for the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. If you are in a finance role, people better use words like analytical and quantitative to describe you. If you're in a marketing role, they better say you are creative, out-of-the-box thinker. If you're in a sales role, they should use words like commercial, relationship-oriented. And oh, by the way, if you want to maximize your success, every day that you choose to exercise your power to walk into your seat, you should know exactly what you're playing for. It should never be a mystery to you as to what it takes to get to the next pay scale, what it takes to get to the next promotion. And most of us go into our seats and say, I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to be loyal and focused, and I will be rewarded and everything will work out. But it doesn't work out that way because, again, you could be working in a way that is inconsistent with what they value. But if you know what you're playing for every day, it will keep you motivated and inspired to deliver excellence every day. But if you don't know what you're playing for, it's very easy for you to get distracted by what I like to call outside atmospheric disturbances, what's going on in the broader economy or what's going on in your internal political economy. And if you are going to work for someone for the first time, or you're going to a new company, or you are changing departments, you should never assume that you know what success looks like. You should always take the time to ask the question. And remember, what got you to that role won't keep you in that role and will allow you to ascend. So you should always understand and have that conversation. And the conversation goes like this: Jim, what needs to happen in order for you to say, I knocked the cover off the ball and the ball out of the park? If Jim says, Mary, you do the following 5 things, and I will consider that an out-of-the-box performance. Now, Mary, you know exactly what you're playing for. You know how to maximize your success in that role. But more importantly, if Jim says, I don't know, Mary, you always do a good job. Just do what you always do. Mary, note to self, Houston, we have a problem. Because if Jim can't tell you what success looks like, you will never maximize your success in that role, because success is always shifting, and that will make your performance vulnerable to outside influences on Jim. So if Jim can't tell you what success looks like, you should say, Jim, you're not sure what success looks like? I got a pretty good idea of what success looks like on this project. You give me 10 minutes and let's walk through it. And you tell me what you like and what you don't like. And now after those 10 minutes, Mary, you know exactly what you're playing for. You know how to maximize your success in that role. The second pearl that I'd like to leave you with is, if you consider yourself a leader in the 21st century, you must be comfortable taking risks. You must be comfortable taking risks. 15 years ago, you could create a competitive differential for yourself in the marketplace if you had information that other people didn't have. But today, information is a commodity. So the way that you can differentiate yourself is to show that you are comfortable taking risks, because it says to the marketplace that you are comfortable with change. And change is one of the guarantees that we have in this life, personally and professionally. But interestingly enough, as we have been in this economic environment over the last 6 years, and I've traveled across this country, all I've heard is, keep your head down, don't take any risks, don't rock the boat. We're having our 2nd reduction in force, our 4th restructuring, just keep your head down. Ladies of the Andrus Women's Leadership Conference, I am here to tell you that keeping your head down will not keep you from getting shot. So you might as well keep your head up so you can see the bullet coming. No, I say that in jest, because what I'm really trying to tell you is that when we are in environments like we have been in for the last 6 years, and everybody else is besieged with fear, and everybody else is ducking, you have clear vision. You have clear vision to see the opportunity. This is exactly the kind of environment where you can markedly accelerate your success. This is not the kind of environment where you should keep your head down, because the issue with keeping your head down is that you submerge your voice, and your voice is at the heart of your power. And when you submerge your voice, you become irrelevant. And when you become irrelevant, you put a big target on the front and a big target on the back. Now is the time to say, oh, I know that we're trying to preserve our profitability. I have 2 ideas about how we should do that. I know we're trying to cut costs. I got 3 ideas about how we should do that. I know we now have 2 people doing the same job that 8 people were doing. That sounds like a process redesign. I'd like to take that on. Translation to management. Wow, she's not worried about the layoffs. He's not worried about losing his job. She's trying to put points on the board. He's trying to move the ball down the field. She is a keeper. But when I ask myself why we don't take more risks, the only thing I can come up with is that we're scared. We're just scared. It's fear. And hear me clearly, fear has no place in your success equation. Fear has no place in your success equation. Anytime you approach anything in your life, personally or professionally, from a position of fear, you will always underpenetrate that opportunity. And whenever I feel it creeping up the back of my neck, I remind myself of that old saying, fear is just false evidence of things appearing real. It's really not there. Because what's the worst that can happen if you take a risk and it doesn't work out? So you fail. But guess what? Failure always brings you a gift. And that gift is called experience. Now you know how to do it better. Now you know how to do it differently. Now you know how to do it successfully. At the margin, it is always worth taking the risk. And in these kinds of environments, many of us will be shown new opportunities. And if you're not sure whether or not you should take the risk on the new opportunity, ask yourself 3 questions. Will the new thing give you skills and experiences that you would not get if you stayed in your current seat another 12 months? Second question, will the new thing expose you to people, relationships, and networks that you would not get if you stayed in your current seat another 12 months? Third question, will the new thing create new branches on your personal decision tree of opportunity, i.e. you could go off and do some other things that you wouldn't have been able to do if you stayed in your current seat another 12 months? If the answer to all 3 of those questions is yes, you should absolutely take the risk. The third pearl that I want to leave you with is you cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. You will need other people's relationships in order to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. And the 3 relationships that I write about in chapter 5 of Expect to Win is the advisor, the mentor, and the sponsor. And I wrote about that because popular business press loves to say you need a mentor, you need a mentor, you need a mentor. But they don't tell you what a good mentor is supposed to do for you, nor do they delineate the difference between the mentor and the sponsor. The advisor is the person that you can ask discreet questions of. Oh, Bob, I'm going to be working with Pete, and I'd like to get to know him. Can you introduce me to him before we start this project? Oh, Helen, I'm doing my first client presentation. Can we walk through the table of contents? I want to make sure I don't miss any of our competitive arguments. Oh, Neville, can you walk me through the weighted average cost of capital? I think you all do it differently than I did it in my old firm. Those are discrete questions that you can ask of an advisor. And the profile of a good advisor is anybody in your environment that has the intellect and or the experience to answer your discrete questions. A mentor, on the other hand, is the person that you tell the good, the bad, and the ugly to. This is the person that you can share the intimate details of your career with. Your fears, your concerns, your mistakes, your triumphs, your strategies. I'm in this box and I want to be in this box. Who do I need to work and how do I get there? This is the person that you can share those intimate details with. So by definition, it must be somebody that you trust, and they must know you very well. Don't just choose someone and say, oh, Deb has been in this business for 30 years. She's successful. She's going to be my mentor. Because if she doesn't know you very well, she cannot be a great mentor. She can be an outstanding advisor. And oh, by the way, an advisory relationship can mature into a mentoring relationship. But if she doesn't know you very well, she cannot be a great mentor, because a mentor's job is to give you tailored advice, tailored specifically to you and to your career aspirations. If I know Martha and I know Helen, and they both want to become senior vice presidents, and I'm a good mentor, I will give them two different strategies, because they are two different women. And my job is to give them tailored advice that they can successfully execute. The profile of a good mentor is somebody that knows you very well, and somebody that beyond a shadow of a doubt has your best interests at heart. If you are not sure that the person you are calling your mentor will keep your conversation in confidence and has your best interest at heart, again, they cannot be a good mentor, but they can be an outstanding advisor. Your mentor does not need to be within your organization, nor do they need to look like you, but they must understand your context. They must understand the context that you are working in. The only mentor that I've kept for 2.5 decades is another senior woman in a completely different business. But boy, does she understand my context, because she is a service provider to my industry. And I call her my script mentor. Whenever I'm about to have one of those conversations with the boys and tell them exactly how much I think I need to get paid and why I think I've added extraordinary value to my organization, I will call her and tell her exactly what I'm planning to say. And generally she will say, "Hey, Carla, what outcome are you expecting with that conversation?" Perhaps you should use these words, juxtaposition the sentences this way, because after all, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about whether or not you can use the King's English. It's about whether or not you say it in a way that your listener will hear it, embrace it, and act upon that which you want them to act upon. So I will role play with her to see if the intonation in my voice will change so that I can have the most impactful conversation that I can possibly have. Now, as quiet as it's kept, you can survive a very long time in your career without a mentor, but you will not ascend in any organization without a sponsor. The sponsor is the most important of the three relationships. And as I said earlier, the mentor is the person you tell the good, the bad, and the ugly to. The sponsor is not the person you tell the good, the bad, and the ugly to. The sponsor is the person you tell the good, and the good. Because this is the person that is carrying your paper into the room. This is the person that behind closed doors will argue passionately on your behalf as to why you should get the great bonus, why you should get the promotion, why you should get the next great opportunity. Make no mistake, this person is spending their valuable political and social capital on you. So there needs to be a very good reason why they're spending this capital on you. And you need to be able to articulate why you are worthy of their spending this capital on you. And if you can't articulate why you are worthy, I will tell you to retreat from looking for a sponsor until you can articulate your own value proposition. My big aha was the year that I was up for the big promotion to managing director. I knew exactly what I was playing for. I knew how the process worked. And I knew who had seats around the table. And as I thought about it, I said, wow, he's going to fight for him. She's going to fight for him. He's going to fight for her. And as I went around that table, I could not with confidence say who was going to pound the table on my behalf. And I said, uh-oh, my promotion to managing director is vulnerable. Not because I haven't earned it, not because I'm not senior enough, and not because there isn't great client feedback on me, but because I can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt who's going to spend some capital on me behind closed doors. Every year, ladies and gentlemen, somebody's not going to get promoted. Somebody's not going to get the great bonus. Do not take it personally. That is the law of the jungle. But the sponsor's job is to make sure that the person getting left behind that year is not you. So I went to someone who I knew had a seat at the table, and I said, it's very important for me to get promoted this year. There's nothing else that I can show this organization about my readiness or my worthiness. But you and I both know that somebody has to be behind closed doors pounding the table on my behalf. You know me, you know my work, you know the client feedback, and I think you would do a terrific job on my behalf. So the guy sort of hummed, but then he said yes. Why was that an important conversation for me to have? If he had told me no, he was going to have to tell me why. And that would have been important data for me from which to make a decision. Ladies, data is your friend. Data is your friend. Data is your friend. You can't fix it if you don't know that it's broken. So you should always create a safe place where somebody is willing to give you the real deal data. But if he said yes, I somewhat trusted that he'd get it done. Now, you heard I'm from the South, so I believe in insurance. So I went to somebody else who was a key influencer to other people around that table. In case he got a little weak behind closed doors, he'd have an amen corner over there. So it was important that I could identify who's carrying my paper into the room. Ladies and gentlemen, you should be able to identify who's carrying your paper into the room. And if you can't answer the question right now, who's carrying your paper into the room, I will tell you to divert some of your energies into developing a sponsor relationship, because it is critical to your ability to ascend in any organization. Fourth pearl that I'm going to leave you with is the authenticity pearl. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you. It is your distinct competitive advantage. And the day that you got your opportunity, somebody else didn't get the job because you were the best person for the job. So the last thing that you should ever do is to submerge that which is uniquely you. As quiet as it's kept, most people are not comfortable in their own skin. So when people see someone who is comfortable and confident in their own skin, they will gravitate towards you. They want some of that. Anytime that you are spending time trying to speak or behave in a way that is inauthentic to who you really are, you are creating a competitive disadvantage. You are using valuable intellectual capacity that you could use to really hear what your client is saying, yet is not articulating. Valuable intellectual capacity that you could use to demonstrate that quick twitch response. Valuable intellectual capacity that you could use to co-collaborate with that person on the other side of the table. This was a very interesting lesson for me because, as you heard from Deb, I am a singer. But when I started in this business, I didn't want anybody to talk about the fact that I was a singer. I wanted to be known as a no-nonsense, hard-driving, analytical, quantitative investment banker. I'm not here to sing and dance, boys. Let's not get it twisted. Didn't want anybody to talk about that until I saw the client reaction. My colleagues would often go into a pitch and say, oh, this is Carla Harris, our capital markets banker. But what you really ought to know about Carla, she's an amazing gospel singer. She's done CDs, sold out concerts at Carnegie Hall and blah, 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 blah. And I'm there rolling my eyes until I saw the client reaction. Oh, you're a singer. Oh, I so admire people who can sing. And I personally love to sing, but my family will only let me sing in the shower. And maybe you can talk to my daughter about how she integrates her love of the arts and her academics and blah, 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 blah. And there we were having a 15-minute meeting before the meeting. Are you with me, ladies? The meeting for the meeting. So when I sat down to pitch, they heard me with a different ear. They saw me through a different lens. Because Carla Harris, the singer, was allowed to be in the room with Carla Harris, the banker, I naturally differentiated myself from those other 5 bankers that would come in there and pitch that same IPO that afternoon. So now, whenever I walk into a new situation, I bring Carla Harris, the investment banker. I bring Carla Harris, the investment manager. I bring Carla Harris, the prayer warrior. I bring Carla Harris, the speaker. Carla Harris, the writer. Carla Harris, the golfer. Carla Harris, the football fan. I bring all those Carlas to the table. Because I don't know which Carla will be the one that will connect and will allow me to own that relationship in a proprietary way. Quick story that I love to tell. 2006, the IPO that every investment bank on the street wanted was the Burger King Ipo. There had not been a quick service restaurant IPO for over a decade, and this one was going to be of size. And everybody wanted it because it was owned by 3 prestigious financial sponsors, which means there would be follow-on offerings after that IPO. Everybody wanted this deal. It was our turn to pitch down in Miami. I'm sitting in the corner, standing in the corner, getting some coffee with the CEO, and I said, hey, John, are you guys going to bring back the Have It Your Way jingle? He said, Carla, funny you should ask. We've been doing our research, and we have found that that was the most successful jingle in Burger King's history, so we're thinking about how to bring it back. I said, oh, cool. Are you guys going to bring back both verses of the jingle? He said, Carla, there was only one verse of the jingle. I said, John, trust me, I'm the original hamburger queen. There were 2 verses to that jingle. He said, Carla, there was only one verse to the jingle. I said, John, hold the pickle, hold the lettuce, special orders, don't upset us. Oh, yes, that you let us serve it your way. But if you want some special thing, it won't take long for us to swing it when you come to Burger King and have it your way. He said, thank you. Now, I don't need to tell you Morgan Stanley one lead left on that IPO, right? But I will tell you that it created a proprietary relationship because long after that deal was over, he would often call me and say, we are going to make this announcement to the street. I'd like to get your judgment on how you think the street will react or what will happen with the stock price. A trusted advisor relationship was created when there was no deal on the table because I had the courage to bring my authentic self to the table. Your authenticity is at the heart of your power, and it in fact creates powerful, impactful, influential leadership. It is at the heart of your power. Bring your authentic self to the table, and it will allow you to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. And as I close, I tell you that the most important component of anybody's success equation is an expectation that you will do well. You have to know that you know that you know that everything that you have done heretofore has uniquely informed your ability to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. But if you want to maximize your success, you must exercise your power and use everything that's in your tool chest. And there are three things that we have in common in our tool chest. One is the academic background, two is the experiential learning, and three is the network. And the one that I find that we consistently underutilize is the network. Yet it is one of the most important tools in your tool chest. Winners understand that there is no monopoly on intelligence. You won't always have the right answer. You won't always have the best idea. But you know somebody in your network that has the information or the access to a relationship that will allow you to successfully prosecute whatever endeavor that you have in front of you. I have learned that the easiest way to get comfortable accessing your network, if you are uncomfortable accessing your network, is to put yourself in somebody else's way. Use your intellect and your influence on somebody else's behalf and watch how fast the network will work for you. My last story for you, young man that I absolutely adore. Summa cum laude from a great undergrad institution, came to work for Morgan Stanley, considered outstanding all 3 years, went off to an international assignment, and then decided he wanted to go to one of those great business schools in the East. Called me up one day and he said, I've applied, haven't heard anything. I know you know a few people up there. Can you call and check on what's going on in my application? I said, absolutely. Picked up the phone. I called the admissions director. I said, hey, I'm just calling to check on so-and-so. She said, oh, funny you should call today. We were just about to send out the reject letters. I said, oh, no, wait a minute. So I went into my pitch on this candidate. She said, okay, consider that you've done something good for somebody today. We're going to give him an opportunity to interview. No guarantees that he gets in. But you've made great recommendations for us over the last decade, so we will give him an opportunity to tell his story. No guarantees. I said, thank you very much, hung up the phone, picked up the phone, called the candidate. You were right. You were just about to get dinged, but you're going to get an opportunity to tell your story, and I want you to leave it on the floor. Leave it on the floor. 4 days later, admissions director calls me. She said, I saw your candidate. I said, and? She said, loved him. Loved him. He's in. And you can let him know if you like. I said, oh, no, I would never take away that thrill of getting that call from your institution. 4 days later, candidate calls me, said, I just want to let you know I got in. I said, I know, I've been sitting on it for 4 days. And he said, I just want to say thank you. I said, no, the gratitude does not go to me. The applause goes to you because you used your network. If you had not picked up the phone to call me, you would have had a markedly different outcome in your aspiration to matriculate at that institution. And he said, oh, but it was so hard to call you and admit something could be wrong with my candidacy. I said, you know how highly I think of you. Short of you dropping your pants on the Brooklyn Bridge, there's nothing that's going to make me feel any differently about you. I have put myself in your way to be used. Ladies and gentlemen, if somebody has put themselves in your way to be used, use them. Use them. And do not be preoccupied with what you can do for that person. there'll be ample opportunity for you to repay that person, or more importantly, for you to push that power forward. Every class that you have had, every experience that you have had, every relationship that you have or you have had has uniquely informed your ability to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. If you expect to win, you will. I thank you, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, ladies, we had a deal. Questions?
So you've talked about mentoring. You've talked about the way that we should look towards finding a mentor. How do you reach out to, especially women younger, and mentor them?
Absolutely. I make sure, and I start off with the mentality that I'm advising them. Because remember, I said to really be a mentor, I have to know you pretty well. So I make myself available. I make sure that I speak when the new class is coming in, or I try to speak or try to get on the agenda to speak so they get a chance to see me. But I have a reputation around the firm as being somebody that you can talk to. So even if I'm not on the initial program, when they come in, the word of mouth gets around. You got to make sure you talk to Carla. Make sure you talk to Carla. So I make sure that I have an open door policy, and people know that I'll meet with them really early, 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. I generally have, coffee time several times during the week when I'm in. And if I'm not in, and because I'm often on the road right now, I'm doing conference calls with people so that I talk to them and can answer their questions. So I make sure that I put myself out there as somebody who can be approached and somebody who will help.
Thank you so much. I admire your tenacity. I admire the fact that you are very comfortable in your skin. In the military, I worked for generals and commanders, and they sent me to school to be assertive, not aggressive, and to be direct. So when a brigadier general walks in and I said no, it wasn't possible, that I wasn't afraid to tell a general no.
Right.
With that, I have learned to be very direct. And a lot of people don't take kindly to directness. And that's the only way I know to be. And even here on campus, people who know me, I have a lot of people that say, Logan, I like the way you're direct. And then I have those that don't want to be don't want to be in my world, or don't want me to be in their world. Mm-hmm. And that makes me feel like I'm failing. But then I don't look down, I look up, straight ahead, and I just continue on my journey.
Right. So Logan, let me say this to you. It goes back to something I'm sure your mother told you a long time ago. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Right? And you can still be direct, but it's about how you deliver the message. It's the tone of your voice. It's the way you're looking at someone. And often, I think we forget as women that there's a lot of power on our faces. And sometimes we get so caught up in this look, like, don't mess with me. I'm really serious. I want to make sure you understand that I mean what I say and I say what I mean. But there is so much power, ladies, in this. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in the smile, right? And so, sometimes you can make it more palatable and digestible in how you say what you say. That's number one. Number two, it's about also making sure that you can use the tools that's on your face. Number three, sometimes you can help people accept it by giving them a warning and saying, I give it straight, no chaser. So are you ready for it? I'm coming at you. I'm coming straight. So if you kind of let them know that is the way you operate, then they can kind of get ready, and then they don't take something else from what you're saying, because you have said, look, I'm direct, I'm going to give it to you straight, no chaser. I don't know how to do it. I don't use a whole lot of adjectives. I just use nouns and verbs. That's it, honey. I'm coming, right? And it'll help them receive it a little bit, okay? All righty.
What advice do you have for somebody who has a startup, or for someone who has just had a position that was invented for them?
Yes, and a position that was invented for them within an organization?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great question. So you get to define what success looks like, but you want everybody else's sign off, right? So if the position was created and you didn't write the job description, somebody else wrote it, then you want to make sure that you sit with the person that created the position and all of the stakeholders, all of the people that will be touched by your position or who you have to interact with, but mainly the person that created it and said, okay, let's talk about what success looks like in this position. And you need to be prepared when you have that conversation with your own definition. It's not just about taking from them what they think success looks like, because they may have created the position without even really knowing what success looks like. They just thought they needed to get something done, so they created a position and they want you to do it. But they haven't thought through what it takes to execute that position. They haven't thought through what success would really look like. They haven't thought through the timeline that it's going to take to accomplish that. So you should think through that before you sit down and have that conversation. So when you say, okay, let's talk about what success looks like, because 6 months from now or 12 months from now, when we look back and we say, is this thing successful? What does that look like? What do we want to have transpired? And if they kind of say, well, you know, that's a good question, then you say, I was thinking that perhaps it looks like this, because maybe they can't answer, but everybody can react. Right? So if you give them the straw man, then they can say, oh, well, yeah, that's right. Or no, I don't really like that. Or I don't really care about that. But what I really think is, and by the time you walk out of that conversation, now you have an agreement on what success looks like and you know what to go and prosecute. Right? But whatever you do, don't leave that conversation without being very clear. And you must have the conversation, because otherwise you're going to work hard, but you're going to be very frustrated because you won't know whether or not you're kind of hitting the mark. And that's a very frustrating, demotivating, de-energizing, I know that's not a word, but de-energizing, you know, way to feel. Okay?
Can I hear you sing amen?
I got something for you on the singing in just a second. I'm going to get y'all to help, but you know a gospel singer has to have a choir, right? So I'm going to get some help on that. Okay.
I had a question about kind of the mentorship role in experience when the mentor becomes a boss, and how you kind of juggle that you can't tell them the bad and the ugly anymore.
That's right.
And how to kind of navigate that.
That's exactly right. So you subtly start to change the conversation. You don't have to say you're fired, you're not my mentor anymore, right? You don't have to say that, but you're absolutely right. You start to shift. You still kind of go to them for some advice. You still sort of check in a little bit, but you start shifting that conversation mainly to one as a sponsor. Because if they've become a boss now, then they're the one that's impacting the paycheck. They're the one that's impacting probably when you get an opportunity to move and when you get promoted. So now you want them to act as a sponsor and really be passionate and a cheerleader around your skills and your deliverables. So you absolutely right. You stop talking about the bad and the ugly subtly. And then you find somebody else that you can share those things with. And you start focusing on, boy, here's my goal. Oh, boy, we got that done. This is what I'd like to do. Boy, with the area of development, I think I should be thinking about so-and-so. What were you thinking about at this point in your career? How should I be thinking about that? What other relationships should I form in the firm? Who else do you think I need to get to know? Start using them for that kind of information and shift that relationship into a sponsor relationship. Great question.
So I'm curious if you've ever encountered this situation where you are one step away from your dream job and now you're really questioning what your dream job was and success and, you know, all of that. If success, the vision of success really was what you intended for it to be.
Right, but now you don't have the appetite for the dream job anymore?
Pretty much.
Okay, now... I would say that that's perfectly okay, because our appetite changes over time. And the things that define success, maybe when you're 25 are very different when you're 45, very different when you're 65. And that's quite okay. So I would just check myself, though, to make sure that it's the appetite that has truly gone versus fear having creeped in, right? Because sometimes you start to convince yourself, well, I don't know if I really want it, because you're starting to question whether or not either you're worthy of it or whether or not you can do it. Right? Now, if you truly no longer have the appetite, I say, well, that's okay. You got there and you say next, because now you got bigger girl dreams, right? But if it's that you're starting to question whether or not you're ready, check yourself, right? And if that could at all be the reason, then I say put your foot on the gas and go for it. right? And see how it feels to be in that new space, in those new clothes, before you walk away from it. All right? Because fear is sneaky.
What happens when there's definitely someone in the organization that's trying to undermine you as you're really trying hard to, make your way up?
Yes, and the first thing I'm going to tell you is make sure you're absolutely sure that person is trying to undermine you, because sometimes we think that they are, but it really doesn't have anything to do with us at all. So if there is a problem and you're pretty sure, it's funny, I just wrote about that in my new book, which will be out at the end of the year. I talk about 4 kinds of personalities that are in an organization: your sponsor, your supporters, the say no to everything people, and the sabotagers, when's that
coming
pretty
out?
much gets everybody, right? Right. So if you're pretty sure that you have a sabotager, then they're always the last person that you want to tell anything to. When you're trying to get a new idea into the organization, or when you're trying to execute something for the first time, you certainly go to your sponsors first to sanity check it and to make sure that you have the right kind of support. Then you go to your supporters, so that person ends up being an outlier. And if they're out there by themselves, they have no power. They won't be able to sabotage what you're doing. So you just make sure that you keep them on the outside of the information loop, and you're very careful about having them with any kind of real level of responsibility. And if you must give them responsibility on your team and you think they're trying to sabotage it, give them something that's really big and public. So when they choose not to execute, it's on them and not on you.
Question is, as I listened to you talked about the Carla that's the singer and the golfer and the different things. And so it appears to me that you have pretty good life balance. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, for many women who have the role of mother and wife and other things, but also work very hard to be professional at
Yes.
work.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for that question, because I talk about that in Chapter 9 of Expect to Win. It's about balance, because I got that question so much. And I'm so glad that this conference is focused on what is success, because success is something that every woman in this room has to define for herself. And so many women feel like they fall short because they are evaluating themselves against somebody else's report card. It is about what works for you in your household, in your family. And what works for you right now in September of 2014 may be a very different definition of success by May of 2016. So it's about always being conscious of what matters to you. And it has always been important to me to have something else in my life besides work. I learned when I was 22 years old that if all I had in my life was work, then my life would become a function of somebody else's day. That when my boss didn't have a good day, I wouldn't have a good day. If the deal didn't go well, it would wreck my week. If I had words with a coworker on the weekend, it would crush my weekend. So I made sure that the other things that were important to me in my life, that I had some of that in my day every day. I define balance as those things that bring you joy. And sometimes that's your kids, sometimes it's your significant other, sometimes it's running, sometimes it's singing, sometimes it's philanthropic activity. But whatever it is, make sure you have something that brings you joy every day, because that's what creates balance. Work is not always going to go well, but if you have something else in your life, in your day, that's going to make you smile, that will bring you joy, for me today, that is this, then the rest of my day is good no matter what happens. So you want to make sure that you have something that's bringing you joy. How do you make it fit? For me, I'm maniacal about my calendar. I am maniacal about my calendar. I make sure that I schedule everything in, even now, white space. I never had white space in my calendar, but now I realize that if I fill up everything, I can't create. So I may have an hour, 2 hours, half an hour, 45 minutes in my day. That's just white space. It's filled because I defined it with white space. So I might not do anything but look up at the sky, but that's 45 minutes that I want to look up in the sky. And if you're doing something that you want to do, it will create some balance for you. And also, ladies, be sure that you do not fall into the superwoman syndrome, that you're the only person that can do it. And so often we as type A personalities think that we're the only one that can do it, and nobody can do it as well as we do. So we never let our partners help us with anything around the house. And so what if the ponytail is a little bit crooked? That's okay. The hair was combed. Somebody else did it. But you got to let people help you. I'm a capital markets banker. I believe in syndication. Get some help. The other thing that I do is I have a florist that has everybody's key dates. So the flowers automatically go out. I don't have to call. Next thing I know, I'm getting a call. Oh, baby, thank you for the flowers. Happy birthday, Grandma. They already went out, right? So get somebody that's going to help you do what you need to do in order for you to feel fulfilled in your life. Those are some of the tools that I use for balance.
You mentioned fear, and I'm hoping that you can help us address how we deal with that fear fear both of being authentic in the workplace and really being there, and also the fear of success. I mean, we're working toward a project, we hope to get there, and then we get the project, and that fear of can I do this, or if I get that, can I do that?
Absolutely. And if it's a fear of doing something, going forward, the thing that I always do is two things if I'm really starting to feel a little bit shaky, is I remind myself of my data. Everybody here has done something for the first time and done it successfully. Everybody here has made a mistake and lived to tell it. So you got over it, right? And you continue to go on. So I look at the data and say, look at your data. If you did it before, you'll be able to do it again. So I use my track record to propel me forward. And I was telling my colleagues a story last night. Someone once told me that, you need to go and articulate exactly what you should get paid. And the first time somebody said that, I said, what? How can I tell them? I can't tell them what I should get paid. And, I practice in the mirror. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. I think and I kept doing it until I could get comfortable enough to go in there and do it. And I finally went in there and said, I think I've done a good job this year, and I think I want to get paid. I want to get paid at the top of my class. I know you can't tell me now. I just want to make sure you knew that. I'll see you later. Right. So, but I got it out. And the first time I got it out, it was good. But you know what pushed me over the edge? I said, Carla, and I'm just using these numbers for illustrative purposes. I said, suppose if you don't say anything, you're going to get paid $150,000 this year. But suppose if you do say something, you're going to get paid $300,000. Is your fear worth $150,000? Right, everybody said no, right? Right? And once I said that, I was like, oh, no. And I went on from there. So I do those kinds of exercises to push myself through. And then finally I say, what's the worst that can happen? If I go ask and they tell me no, what's the worst that can happen? Will I live on the other side of that no? If the answer is yes, then I'll go ahead and do it. Because the upside opportunity is so much greater than the downside. So that's how you push yourself through.
You said that the person, when you get hired that day, you're hired for a reason. And then usually that person that hires you sometimes becomes your sponsor and your biggest advocate. So several times in my career, that person has retired or left the organization. And I'm just wondering how you handle that transition. Yeah,
that's a great question. I just wrote about that in the new book as well. And I'll tell you what you do. You use your old sponsor to help anoint a new sponsor. Because just because that person has left the organization or retired doesn't mean they don't still have power in that organization. So the conversation goes like this. Let's say it's a guy and you say, hey, Paul, you were the best sponsor and you really helped me do the following things. But now you're leaving me in the lurch. And unless you're going to take me with you, hint, hint, right? Unless you're going to take me with you, then you got to help me make sure that I have air cover back in this organization. So who do you think would be able to do a good job as being a sponsor? And then Paul will say, maybe you should talk to X, maybe you should talk to Y. If you know those people, that's great. If you don't, you should say, well, Paul, can you make an introduction for me so I can start to build that relationship? And that's perfect because you now come into that relationship with Paul's halo. And that'll help you to create a relationship with the new person. But use Paul's capital to get the new person that's in your organization. Okay? So I know someone asked me to sing, so this is what we're going to do. As I said, every great gospel singer has a choir. So we're going to do a little call and response here, all right? Are you really ready to sing? Okay. So on my latest album, Unceasing Praise, number 10 is Expect to Win, which was written because of the book. Someone heard me speak about the book and they wrote a song which I absolutely adored. It's on iTunes. So I'm going to teach you the chorus. I'll give it, you give it back to me. Are you ready? Okay. Expect to win. Expect to win. No matter what you're up against. Don't give up, don't give in. Oh, yes, you can. Not fear, but faith. We'll win the race. Don't give up. Don't give in. Expect to win.
The Andrews Center for Public Policy is a nonprofit organization and a division of Boise State University's College of Social Sciences and Public Affairs. Our mission is to inform and educate about gender equity, education, and the environment. You can learn more at andrewscenter.boisestate.edu.